and girls, I am so excited. This is the first story time of this season that the weather's been nice enough for me to do this outside. It's not too rainy, and it's not too cold, and it's not too windy. It's a beautiful day. Now, I'm making this story time video, not the day that you're watching it. So maybe right now for you, it could be rainy or cold or windy. But if you just hold tight, we'll get another day like this, and another one, and another one. Because that's just what the weather does this time of year, isn't it? I've got some really good stories to tell you today, and I've got some really fun songs, and I can't wait to get started. Should we go ahead? Let's go ahead. And if you see some people walking or hear some children playing, well, that's just all part of being outside, isn't it? Clap your hands if you love stories. Clap your hands, I know you do. I'm so glad that we could be together. Glad to share a story time with you. So I'm going to start off with a tall tale from Georgia. Now, a while ago, we talked about what a tall tale is. Do you remember? A tall tale, it's a story that is kind of an exaggeration, or sometimes a not quite truth. Sometimes people will tell them to make an ordinary story sound more exciting, or sometimes they're making up how something happened, and so they make it way more exciting or grand than it might really have been. This is one from a place called Georgia. It's a state over next to the Atlantic Ocean in the southern part of the United States. I kind of grew up over next to the Atlantic Ocean myself, and I didn't grow up in Georgia. I grew up Maryland and West Virginia area, so this is further south than me, but believe me, in West Virginia, we have plenty of tall tales like this. This one is called The Crows Are in the Corn. Happened in Georgia not too long ago that there was a farmer and his wife, and they decided that the weather was so nice and they felt so comfortable in their bed that they were going to sleep in. They didn't do that very often. Farmers don't, you see. Farmers like to get up bright and early, before even the sun is up sometimes, so they can get all their chores done. But this time, this was an exception this day. They decided they were going to stay in bed. Well, there were a bunch of crows. Do you know what sound a crow makes? Caw, caw! Big blackbirds. They were sitting in a tree, and they were looking at the farm, and they were waiting for the farmer to come out and start picking his corn. But the farmer didn't come out, and the farmer didn't come out. And they thought, this might be our chance. They decided that this was their golden opportunity to go down and have a corn feast. And so that's what they did. They dove down into the cornfield and started to munch and chomp. And while they did that, they talked to each other and they said, corn, corn! Well, that kind of woke up the old rooster. He had crowed when the sun came up, but he was taking a little nap now. And he looked into the field, and he didn't see the farmer, but he did see the crows. And so he started to crow to the farmer and his wife to try to wake them up and give them a second chance. He said, wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. Kind of like cock-a-doodle-doo. And the farmer blinked his eye open, but he decided he was going to go back to sleep. He rolled over onto his other side and started snoring again. And the crows kept eating. And they kept saying, corn, 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 while they did. And the rooster tried again. He said, the crows are in the corn! The crows are in the corn! The crows are in the corn! The wife put a pillow over her head because it was loud, but she didn't want to wake up yet. The rooster was starting to get really upset because a lot of corn had been eaten by this point. It was almost all gone. So he tried one last time. The crows are in the corn! They're pulling up the corn! They're pulling up the corn! Well, the farmer and his wife didn't even stir that time. They didn't even blink. And the rooster, finally, frustrated enough, gave up. Nothing was going to wake up the farmer and his wife. Well, about that time, the old turkey came strolling into the yard. And he looked, and the crows had fluttered away, but as he looked at the cornfield, there was nothing left. And so he went over to the rooster to tell him what was going on. Now, what sound does a turkey make? Gobble, 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 gobble. Well, this time he went to the rooster and he said, the corn's all ate up, ate up, ate up, ate up, ate up, ate up, ate up. All ate up. Well, the farmer and his wife finally sat up in bed, yawned and stretched, and looked out the window, and they were so surprised and unhappy to see that all of the corn was gone. And that's why, down in Georgia, when it's time to wake up, they say, the crows are in the corn. All right. Well, it is not raining out right now, but you know that we do get a lot of rain in April. And we have to have a lot of rain in April because that's what makes the plants grow. So we're going to do a finger play about rain. And I want you to take your fingers and we're going to make some rain, okay? When the rain starts falling, it comes down softly and slowly. So let's make our fingers go soft and slow. The rain is falling down. Splash! The rain is falling down. Splash! Pitter patter. Pat your knees. Pitter patter, pitter patter, pitter patter, pitter patter. Now the rain gets louder and faster, okay? Here we go, louder and faster. The rain is falling down. Splash! The rain is falling down. Splash! Pitter patter, pitter patter, pitter patter, pitter patter. And sometimes we hear thunder. Hear the thunder crash. Make a big loud clap. Hear the thunder crash. And we're going to stomp our feet. Thunder, 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 thunder. Let's do that again. Hear the thunder crash. Hear the thunder crash. Thunder, 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 thunder. Now the storm's going to start to stop. So we do our rain again. The rain is falling down. Splash. The rain is falling down. Splash. Pitter patter, pitter patter. Slow down. Pitter patter, pitter patter, pitter patter, pitter patter. Splash. Good job. Okay, our second story is another tall tale. And it's the kind of tall tale that sometimes people use to teach a lesson, to see what people can take away and learn from it. And it is called, It Could Be Worse. You see, a while ago, there was a family, a mom and a dad and a baby, maybe a little older than a baby, who lived in a little house. It was very small and cozy and quiet and organized, and it was perfect for them. But one day they got a letter, and it said that Grandma and Grandpa were coming to live with them in their tiny house. And the child was very, very excited that Grandma and Grandpa were coming, and so were Mom and Dad. But they also were thinking pretty hard about it. They looked around and they thought, there isn't a whole lot of room for 2 more people to live here. It's going to be very crowded and very noisy. They didn't quite know what to do. And so Papa went into town and he found the wise man. There was a wise man in that village who always gave the best advice for anyone's problems. And he went to that wise man and he said, "Teacher, my parents are coming to stay with us, but our house is too small and it's going to be too crowded and noisy. What should we do?" And the wise man thought. He said, "Let them come. It will be all right." And so Papa went back to his house and they waited. And soon enough, Grandma and Grandpa showed up. And they were very happy to see them. But Grandma and Grandpa had brought a lot of things with them. They brought a lot of furniture. A lot of it went into the living room, which is the only room left in the house where they could sleep. But some of it went all over the rest of the house too. And there was even less room than they had before. They were always bumping into each other and knocking elbows. And it was so much louder. It was just as bad as Mama and Papa had worried that it was going to be. And so back into town went Papa, back to the wise man. And he said, "Wise man, teacher, my parents have come and it is too noisy and crowded in our house. I don't know what to do. What should we do?" And so the wise man thought. He closed his eyes and sat back, considered. And then he said, "Do you have chickens?" And Papa said, "Yes, of course I have chickens." And the wise man said, "Bring the chickens into the house to stay there with you." That seemed like very strange advice, but the wise man always gave good advice. It was never wrong. And so Papa said, "All right." And he went home and he brought in his flock of chickens out of their coop into the house. Well, if it was crowded before, now it was even more crowded and even more noisy. And the chickens were all over the place. They made nests in Grandma and Grandpa's beds. And they cluck, cluck, clucked and jumped on the tables and sat on the curtain rods. It was chaos. And so back into town to see the wise man went Papa. And he said, "I did what you said, teacher. I brought the chickens into the house, but now it's even more crowded and noisy. We can't stay like this." And so the wise man sat back and thought. And he said, "Do you have goats?" And Papa said, "Of course I have goats." And the wise man said, "Bring the goats into the house to stay with you." Papa was very doubtful about this advice, but even though he was confused, he knew that the wise man was always right. And so he went home and he brought the goats into the house with Mama and the child and Grandma and Grandpa and the chickens. And the goats, oh, they were really noisy. Just making lots of noise, and they're much bigger than chickens, so they took up a lot more room, and they were knocking into things and breaking things and butting heads with each other. It was ridiculous. And so, trucks are noisy. And so, Papa went back into town to see the wise man again. And he said, "I did what you said, teacher. But now my parents have nowhere to sleep because the chickens have laid eggs in their bed and the goats are sticking their heads into everything, and we can't put food on the kitchen table without them eating it before we get a chance, and it's just too much." And so the wise man sat back and thought, and he said, "Do you have any sheep?" The man said, "Of course I have sheep." And so the wise man said, "Bring the sheep into the house to stay with you." Oh, it was a good thing that this wise man had a reputation for giving always good advice and never bad advice. Papa went home and he took the sheep into the house to stay with them. And now it was much, much, much worse than before, The chickens were clucking and flapping their wings, and they were starting to sit on their eggs to hatch them, so there were going to be even more chickens in the house pretty soon. And the goats were butting their heads into the walls now and making holes and cracks in the walls. And the sheep were bang all over the place, and one of them sat on Papa's eyeglasses and broke them. The house was crazy and so loud, and nobody was happy. And it was starting to smell like a barn. And so back into town went Papa, and he found the wise man, and he said, I have done everything that you suggested. I brought the chickens in. I brought the goats in. I brought the sheep in. Now we can't hear ourselves think. We have nowhere to sit, nowhere to lie down at night. We're bumping into each other and the animals, and everybody is getting upset, even the child. And the whole place is starting to smell like a barnyard. And so the wise man thought, and he smiled a little to himself. He said, go back home. Take the chickens back to their coop. Take the goats and the sheep back out to your barnyard. And so that's what Papa did. He went back to the house. He gathered up all of the chickens and their eggs and took them back out to the chicken coop. And he herded the goats out the door and into their pen. And then he herded the sheep out the door and into their pen. And while he was doing that, room by room, the child and Mama and Grandma and Grandpa cleaned things up. They started tidying things and putting furniture back into place and picking up all the stray hay and whatnot that they had brought in for the animals to eat. And as they worked, the house got tidier and tidier, and it felt more and more spacious, not crowded at all. And it was so much quieter. They didn't have to yell to be heard anymore. They could speak almost in a whisper and still have other people hear them. When the farmer came back in, when Papa came in the house and he looked around, he smiled for the first time in a while. And they all agreed this was the biggest, most comfortable, most peaceful house in the world. And it was just fine. We're gonna sing a song now called Down on Grandpa's Farm. And if you've ever sung Old MacDonald Had a Farm, if you know your animal sounds, then I really hope that you can help me out big time with this one. It's kind of along the same lines. We'll start by singing how we're on our way to Grandpa's farm, and then we'll jump into the animals, and you'll figure out when we need to make the animal noises. You can make them with me. All right, you ready? Here we go. We're on our way, we're on our way to Grandpa's farm. We're on our way, we're on our way to Grandpa's farm. Down on Grandpa's farm there is a little red hen. Down on Grandpa's farm there is a little red hen. The hen, it makes a noise like this. Quack, quack. The hen, it makes a noise like this. Quack, quack. We're on our way, we're on our way to Grandpa's farm. We're on our way, we're on our way to Grandpa's farm. Pretty good. Down on Grandpa's farm there is a big brown cow. Down on Grandpa's farm there is a big brown cow. The cow, it makes a noise like this. Moo, moo. The cow, it makes a noise like this. Moo, moo. We're on our way, we're on our way to Grandpa's farm. We're on our way, we're on our way to Grandpa's farm. Down on Grandpa's farm there is a fat pink pig. Down on Grandpa's farm there is a fat pink pig. The pig, it makes a noise like this. Oink, oink. The pig, it makes a noise like this. Oink, oink. We're on our way, we're on our way to Grandpa's farm. We're on our way, we're on our way to Grandpa's farm. Down on on Grandpa's farm there is a big black dog. Down on Grandpa's farm there is a big black dog. The dog, it makes a noise like this. Ruff, ruff. The dog, it makes a noise like this. Ruff, ruff. We're on our way, on our way to Grandpa's farm. We're on our way, on our way to Grandpa's farm. Down on Grandpa's farm there is a yellow bumblebee. Down on Grandpa's farm there is a yellow bumblebee. The bee, it makes a noise like this. Buzz, buzz. The bee makes a noise like this. Buzz, buzz. We're on our way, on our way to Grandpa's farm. We're on our way, on our way to Grandpa's farm. Down on Grandpa's farm there is a pretty blue bird. Down on Grandpa's farm there is a pretty blue bird. The bird, it makes a noise like this. Tweet, tweet. The bird, it makes a noise like this. Tweet, tweet. We're on our way, on our way to Grandpa's farm. We're on our way, on our way to Grandpa's farm. One more, okay? Down on Grandpa's farm there is a fluffy white sheep. Down on Grandpa's farm there is a fluffy white sheep. The sheep, it makes a noise like this. Ba, ba. The sheep, it makes a noise like this. Ba, ba. We're on our way, on our way to Grandpa's farm. We're on our way, on our way to Grandpa's farm. We're on our way, on our way to Grandpa's farm. We're on our way, on our way to Grandpa's farm. Well, that was a lot of animals today, wasn't there? You know what? It's getting to be about the season where you could go out and see a lot of animals. The zoo is open. You can go to the zoo as long as you're safe and as long as you stay socially distanced, wear a mask, make sure that everyone around you who can get the COVID shot goes to take care of that too. Just be safe, but go see if there's some animals that you can see. Maybe your grandma or grandpa or someone else you know has a farm that you could go visit. That would be fun too. And if there are no animals around you and you can't get to the zoo and there aren't even any dogs or cats or anything around that you could pet, that's what the internet's for, and there are lots of animal videos. Maybe next time I'll bring my pups onto the camera and you can see them again. They probably miss you too. All right, let's get a big stretch. And reach for the sky. And touch the floor. Stand up again. Let's do some more. Touch your head. And now your knees. Up to your shoulders. Like this, you see. And reach for the sky or the ceiling. And touch the floor. That's all there is. There isn't any more. But I'll see you next week. Bye-bye. There goes a bird.